Hi guys. Um, so what I'm gonna do is and this is a thing I do for myself is where I I make little videos where I just kind of get out whatever's in my head, and I typically don't post them. I just make them and then I either delete them or they just stay on my phone until I eventually delete them. Because that's a way for me to talk about the things that I want to talk about, but actually have some sort of an audience where it's like it's not really an audience because I'm essentially talking to myself, but it's an audience in the sense that I feel like I'm still getting the information out of my head, right? Now, um, I've thought about this for a while, but I think today I'm going to start it. I'm going to kind of use my YouTube channel as like a almost like a diary sort of thing, like where I'm just gonna say the shit that I want to say, and then I'll upload it. And if people find it, then cool. If not, then whatever. But I'm not gonna promote my channel or any of that shit. I don't really care if anybody watches it. But I think this will be kind of cool to look back in 5 or 10 years and be able to watch these videos and think about that. So the one I wanted to talk to about today was that I want to talk about male birth control, and I want to talk about the situation because I see a lot of people, a lot of evidence, really that the U.S. especially is straying away from marriage. Single, long-term, monogamous relationships aren't really popular anymore, I guess. And every rap song, every MTV show, every whatever, it's all just about sex and numbers. It's like you got to get your body count up, or you got to, this, that, and the other thing. And it's to me, it's all garbage. I think it's mad garbage. But what I want to talk about though is that like if you look at the options that men and women have, they're not equal by any stretch. And so like if you watch a lot of these YouTube shorts or whatever, you'll see that people are saying things like women have to do all this and women have to go through, excuse me, let me start over. Women have to go through, maybe they get the shot, right? And then they have to go through hormonal changes and they got to figure out if that works for them or if it doesn't work for them. Maybe it turns them into a raging bitch. Maybe it makes them cry all the time. Um, whatever it is. And then they can try the pill, and if the pill doesn't work then they can try the implant, and if the implant doesn't work then they have options, right? But like as a man you don't really have options, you just have condoms or a vasectomy. There's not really much else you can do. And women also have plan B, and guys, we don't need a plan B option, but I mean having, no, that wouldn't work anyway. So the idea here though is that if we were to push to make these options available for men, in the sense that if, say, if I, as a straight dude, could go get a shot in my arm or a shot in my butt cheek or whatever it is that says, for the next year or 6 months or 3 months or whatever the time span is, that maybe I'll go through some hormonal changes, maybe I'll deal with some problems or issues or whatever the case, but I can't get anybody pregnant for that amount of time until I have to take another shot. So you're telling, now maybe I'm the wrong example because I'm older and I'm married, but say if you took 18-year-old me, right, and you said take this shot and you can't get anybody pregnant, it might fuck you up, but you'll just have to deal with that. That's a side effect. I'd be like, fuck yeah, sign me up. You know why? Because that was the most explosive time for me in my history as far as being a young dumb kid. So that would help solve the issue a little bit, and it would kind of take some of the power but also some of the responsibility off the women. Because a woman can tell you that she's on birth control all day and then come to find out she's not and whatever. And some women play games, and some, if men had the same availability, some men would play games too. The biggest difference there is that women, on average, want kids a lot more than men do, until they actually have kids. Like, that's why they have that old adage that, a woman is a mother as soon as she knows she's pregnant, and a man is a father as soon as he sees the kid. Um, so I think that's kind of prime objective number one, is that we start making more birth control for men that's actually effective and actually works, and then men can kind of see the other side of the table. I mean, I've had past partners, and in my wife now, that that they've gone through birth control, and I see what it does to women, and oftentimes, it's not too big of a deal, but sometimes it's insane. I mean, sometimes women start taking a new kind of birth control, and they are just emotional fucking wrecks, and it's brutal. It's painful. I've seen a lot of women go through pain just trying to stay baby free and still live a life. So take a little bit of that responsibility off and give it to the man. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of young guys would be absolutely down for it. I don't think they have a problem with it at all. Because you got to think, as a young guy, like, all you have is your pull out method, which doesn't fucking work near as often as you think it would, and condoms, which, let's just be real, nobody likes to wear condoms. It sucks. So, I mean, give us some fucking better options here. And then you say, well, a guy can go get a vasectomy. Um, I'm I've never had a vasectomy, but I'm pretty sure that you have to go through a psychological evaluation to even get one, and even that is strange when you think about it. Because, like, what happens if they fail that exam? It's like you're forced to have kids now. But I mean, I've had friends too that have gone to go get vasectomies at 25. They walk in and they go talk to the doctor and they say, "Look, I'm a drug addict. I'm fucking crazy. I'm a filthy piece of shit, and I don't want to have kids. So can I get a vasectomy?" And they're like, "No, you better take a few years and think about it." Because the whole game is geared towards men. It's not geared towards women. It's the responsibility is geared towards women, and the power of the situation is geared towards men. And it doesn't matter if it's one or the other. It should just be more equal. I mean, if all the power is in women's hands, all the responsibility is in men's hands, I'd be saying we should find the same things for women. This isn't one versus the other. It's equality between the two, because it's equally responsible. You can't have a baby without the dude, and you can't create the baby without the dude. It's equal, And condoms, that's a birth control that I think men and women both are responsible for, because I think that if you're gonna have safe sex with somebody, like, you should be responsible for making sure either the guy has one and is wearing it, or the guy should make sure that he has it and is wearing it, and using it correctly. But there are shisty, shady people out there that'll cut holes in it or take it off halfway through, or whatever the case. Um, so there's always going to be that shady part of this society, of those kind of people that have devious means for why they do the things that they do, and we'll never be able to get rid of that. There's no amount of birth control or pills or whatever we can do to change that. So, that being said, excuse me. I think this also goes back to, fundamentally, it goes back to education, because a lot of kids, especially my generation, my sex ed was a class by and excuse my language, but my teacher who taught me sex ed was by far the most unfuckable person I've ever met in my life. And nothing against her, she was a great teacher, but number one right there, that just kind of killed it, because now I'm just looking at diagrams, and it just doesn't, a lot of it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I know what I have, but I'm not really sure what you have, because it's in the diagram, it looks crazy looking, it's just scary. Then you see it in real life and it's totally different. But then still, it doesn't really prepare you for having real sex with a real person. The diagrams and shit don't really do it, But then the sex ed I got from my parents was nothing. It was not good at all. No disrespect to you, mom or dad, but yeah, garbage sex education there. And so I think that this falls back on parents, it falls back on the school, but it also falls back on our society, because I have talked to a few other people. I've done a little research on my own, not enough to really say with any kind of certainty, but enough to say that, um, in other countries around the world, they have educational programs on regular cable TV. They have, like, I was talking to somebody that was from Germany, and they said that when you're just watching regular TV, like they'll have a shampoo commercial come on or something, and it'll show a full-on naked woman in a shower in the commercial on regular TV. There's titties at bus stops. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so sheltered. And they have kids programs that, as you progress in age, these kids programs get a little bit more progressive with their sex education. And so by the time these kids are 6, 7, 8 years old, they're well aware of what they have, what the other sex has, what they do, what it means, blah, blah, blah. And then if you look at their sex crimes rates, they are dramatically lower than the U.S. For sure. I could cite that statistic for you, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it up to you. But let's just look at this hypothetically. Even if that was hypothetically true, right? I think we can draw a correlation between the amount of education that one gets before they are sexually active, or even to a point where they really can be sexually active, and how they act as they get older, right? How smart they are with sex once they start having it, knowing and understanding what it means to have consent, and knowing how to act in certain situations. For example, if you took maybe like a bunch of high school kids, they go out and somebody's parents went out of town and they steal mom's liquor cabinet or whatever, and they all get drunk, and like one of the younger girls passes out in like a back room somewhere or whatever, and then one of the younger guys comes back, and she was drunk and she fell asleep, and he was drunk, and then he comes back and he finds this girl in the room. Now, anybody with an understanding of what that situation is would expect that guy to go in there, find out that there's a woman in there, or a girl sleeping in there, and trying to recover or whatever she's doing, and that she's in an inebriated state. She's not to be taken advantage of. Maybe put a blanket on her, get her a pot to puke in or something, get her some water, take care of her, and then leave her the fuck alone. Because that's what you should do in that situation. Right? Anybody typically would know how this works. But when you're at that age, and there's hormones, and there's lack of education, whatever else, that guy might walk in that room and see that girl sleeping on the couch as a free ticket. Which is terrible, but I mean, it's just the way of the world. And had that kid understood that that's wrong and that he shouldn't be doing that, then maybe those things would happen less often. But I'll tell you what, with the culture the way it is now, I would say, I mean, I don't know, but it's just a stupid shot in the dark guess that nowadays, most of the time when they're in those situations, it's a free ticket. It's not taking care of her. It's not doing the right thing. It's absolutely doing the wrong thing and being justified for it, because that's where people are going. I mean, I don't really personally agree with the hookup culture of America right now, because for one, it's bleeding down into younger and younger ages. It's creating this surrounding where sex is so important, but it's so carefree at the same time, which is the weirdest dichotomy for anybody to deal with, because especially when you're younger. Like, I'm just trying to put myself in my own, 16-year-old mind. Like, I had a girlfriend when I was 16. I lived with my girlfriend when I was 15. Um, I was dating and all that stuff very early. And I was hanging out with my friends at that time that were all doing the same thing. And whether they were dating or just hooking up or whatever, like that was the motif back then. And I'm sure it's fucking way worse now, especially with the, well, I don't know, that's a whole nother conversation. But I guess what I'm getting at here is that I think that male birth control should be more of a thing, and I think that if it was, it would be. I think if it was, then I think between the availability of young men to not have to do a surgery that in a vasectomy you can't always replace it, you can't always reverse it, and it might be if you have a vasectomy for 3 months that you can reverse it, but it might be that after a year you can't, maybe it's after 5 years you can't. So maybe you get one when you're 16. Maybe legislation makes it to where you can get snipped at 13 if you wanted to. Like, as soon as you start getting a sack, you cut it. And then that way, as you're going through high school and you're doing your thing in your early 20s or whatever, and then when you're 25 and you've settled down, you go, okay, I want to reverse this now. Except for you can't, because now you've had it for well over 10 years, and it's not possible anymore. You can't do it. And you didn't sperm bank, you didn't any of that shit, so you will never be able to see your own kid. It's just not a possibility for you anymore. And that's pretty traumatic for guys that actually want kids. Now, that number, men that want kids, is going down dramatically as well. And even the men out there that are having kids oftentimes don't want to be dads. So we're already in the thick of a shitty situation, right off the bat. But I think that if you were to couple other low risk options for men, right? And I say low risk because, if you look at what women have, right? They have the shot, the implant, the whatever. These things have adverse side effects, but they are still low risk, right? Because they're always reversible. If you're on birth control, you can get off birth control. If you're on vasectomy, you can't always get off vasectomy. Okay, so it is a higher risk, lower side effect. I'll agree with you there. So I think if you had those options for men, and then you couple that with better education and an understanding that what these kids are going through, that it's a societal function for them to have to deal with some bullshit from dumbass kids. But at the end of the day, there are a few facts. There are a few facts about the situation that it took me 30 years to figure this out. Okay, but one of the facts I found out is that, number one, being a virgin is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It doesn't matter if you're 15 or if you're 35. It's not a bad thing to be a virgin. It's, in some cases, maybe a less desirable thing or whatever. Maybe it's a more desirable thing. Some people stay celibate because of religious beliefs, and some people just can't seem to get any, and so they just end up that way, or whatever. But that's not inherently a bad thing. That's just a thing. It's like, I wear blue pants, I have brown eyes, and I'm a virgin. It's just a characteristic trait. That's all it is. But when you're a guy and you're young and you're around other dudes and they're like, oh, you ain't got no pussy yet, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of that, and it sucks. And I know that because I've said that kind of shit to people. So I mean, I'm guilty of being the bully in that situation, absolutely. And it's not, but again, it's not a bad thing. That's something that I think young men really need to understand, is that it's not a bad thing. Two, one phrase that I hear pretty often now is this thing called body count, which is like how many girls or guys you've slept with. And I was thinking about that Because as a guy, you're supposed to have a higher body count because it's like a sign of machismo, right? Like it's a sign that you can conquer or whatever. And as a girl, you're not supposed to have that many because you're supposed to keep your innocence, or you're supposed to keep your, what's the word? Like, you don't want to be this blown out girl that's had 70 dudes inside of her because, then once you, like, the next guy's not going to want that because it's all used up and it's all whatever. No, that's not the case either. None of this shit is right. Okay, like, if you look at it realistically, if you were a guy, right? And then there's another guy right next to you, and you guys are like, let's say you're even twins. Let's say you're like exactly on the same level, same muscle, same good looks, same style, same whatever, same across the board, right? And then one guy has had sex with 100 women, and one guy has had sex with 5 women, right? And then there's a girl, and then that girl is looking for either a dating thing or a one night stand thing or whatever. Who do you think she's going to go for? She's going to go for the player because that's the bad boy. That's the guy that she wants. Right? Because that's what they're looking for. But if you put a wifey, if you put a potential wife up there, okay, somebody that wants to share and build and create a life with you, they are not going to go for the player. I guarantee you any day of the week. And they're not going to do that because it's entirely more impressive that you slept with one woman 100 times than 100 women one time. Think about that. So it all depends on what you want in your life. And I think a lot of these guys, they're brought up in this culture where it's like you just gotta, you gotta learn the ropes and you gotta fuck as much as you can before you finally lock one down or whatever. But that's always the end goal, is to lock one down at the end. Right? So if that's not your goal when you're 18, it may very well be your goal by the time you're 30. So these are things that need to be addressed, and you need to talk to your kids about these things, and kids need to understand and know these things because, as they get older, they're going to be susceptible, they're going to be impressionable, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to do things that they would have, that they could have been taught how not to do in the first place. Now granted, on a personal level, I wouldn't change a fucking thing about how I did it. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm just going to say that I wouldn't change a fucking thing because I believe that every step of your life creates who you are, and I'm pretty happy with who I am. So I feel like had any of that changed, or if any of it was different, then I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I may very well be a totally different piece of shit person that I would hate. So ultimately, I'm not unhappy with the mistakes I made, but had I not made them in the first place, or at least had I had the understanding, I would feel a lot better about the decisions I made personally. Because I would know that when I went into them, I actually knew what the fuck I was talking about or what I was doing, and I was aware of the situation, which a lot of the times I wasn't. So, all in all, I think what we need to do is we need to create these alternatives for men. We need to teach kids at a younger age about sex and about what, female and male parts do and what, and however we go about that, I don't know. I'm not a sex ed teacher. I'm just saying that, like, whether we follow suit of other countries or whether or not we create our own system or we just better the system that we have, whatever works. But that's kind of where we need to start, is better education and a better, well-rounded understanding of sex and how it's incorporated in our society. And we also need to quit shitting on marriage. Marriage is awesome. But that's a whole different little YouTube TED Talk thing. I think that is a good, feasible option for the future. And I think it will get us all to a point where we're a little bit happier with our decisions. And it'll save the next generation a whole heap of Shit. As a final note, and just as a forewarning, this is how all of these videos are going to be. It's just going to be me talking to myself for a half an hour. So if you like my channel, cool. If not, then I don't blame you. As a final note, there's something I notice about myself that every time I hear that somebody has anything more than like 2 kids, I'm like, why? I'm like, that's insane. I've met a few people just in the last week or two. Oh, I got 5 kids. Oh, I got 8 kids. I got 6 kids. I got fucking 4 kids. What? How and why? What is the? That's insane. To me, that's bonkers. That's fucking crazy. But it's how people want to live, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just think that oftentimes those kids come from shit families. Because they have, 4 or 5 siblings, and maybe they have all their needs met, but, dad's an alcoholic and mom's a stress case and whatever else, because these people haven't created a good foundation for themselves before they started popping out babies, because all they wanted to do was fuck around. They just wanted to have sex. And then before you knew it, they had a baby. And then they had to deal with that kid. And then it just moves down the line. And I find it hard to believe that these guys are all just super stoked that they got 6 fucking mouths to feed. I just don't see it. And they're always like, because if you ask any parent, if you could take it back, you know what I mean? Like if you could, not have had kids in the first place, would you do it? And they'll always tell you the same thing. They'll always go, well, I love my children, but no, I don't regret it. I don't regret it. Yeah, you do. You do, because you feel like that kid stole your life from you. But the problem is that you didn't set yourself up in such a way that you would be able to take care of that kid up until the point where the kid would be self-sustainable and doesn't need you around. And then you could have lived your life the way you wanted to. And you also think that, like, oh, well, I was going to visit Bora Bora and go backpacking through Greece and do all these fun things before I got strapped down with a kid. No, you weren't. And even if you were going to do that, there's no reason that you can't go do that. You can still do that. Maybe you can't do it right this second. Maybe your life is a lot more expensive now because you have a child. But had you planned for that, or had you figured that shit out in the first place before you decided to have a kid, because let's be real, we're not deciding to have kids 99.9% of the time, you would have been able to figure this out. You would have been able to figure out how to raise that child and still have time for yourself and still have time to go vacationing or whatever it is. And fuck, it's your kid. Why not just take him with you? You still want to go backpacking through Europe and have your fun? Take your kid with you. Because your idea of, and anybody that disagrees with that, I would argue this. Your biggest obstacle there is that when you talk about traveling the world and seeing the country and doing all that other shit, you're talking about some amount of traveling and partying. You're talking about going to Ireland to see the beautiful castles and Scotland to see all the beautiful greenery and go to the Guinness plant and go get shit-faced. Or, maybe you're from abroad and you want to travel to America. Is it because you want to see all the beautiful cities? No, it's because you want to go get drunk with Americans. Or you want to go do drugs. Or you want to go to Burning Man. You want to go to, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. That's my own thing. Whatever your intentions are, I think that, from day one, if you actually planned to have a child and actually did it in a way that you waited until you were ready, and then everybody goes, well, that you're never going to be ready. Bullshit. Okay? I'm never going to be ready for the end of the world, but I can fucking plan for it. And then once I'm done planning for it, and I feel like I'm to a level that I can sustain myself after the end of mankind, then mankind can die and I'd be happy. I'd be good. I'd be stress free because I knew how I was going to go about it. I had a good plan. And every plan has fallbacks, it has shit that can go wrong, it has problems. Yeah. So being resourceful and being able to combat those challenges is the most you can do in that situation. But yeah, of course you'll never be perfectly ready to be a parent. But that's not to say that you can't be ridiculously well prepared. I mean, how many people do you know have had kids and already knew what school they were going to go to? Already knew, what their first car was going to be? Or, I mean, any of those things. Like, had you planned out your kid's life at all? Do you have any money saved up? Do you have any infrastructure? Do you actually own anything? I mean, did you do anything more than just get a job, find a woman that also has a job, and then hook up? I don't think so. I don't think 98% of the American populace did that. And it's not to say that that's the only way to do it. I'm not trying to aggrandize, being stupidly prepared to have a child before you have one. I'm just saying that planning for any eventuality and being ready for it is often, always. It's always better to be prepared than not to be prepared. Which is like when people talk about guns. They say, okay, well, I'd rather have one and not need it than need it and not have it. Okay, well, what about a plan for raising a kid? Well, I'd rather have one than need one. That's why I don't have a kid. Granted, because of my past indiscretions, that was luck. That was sheer luck. It was absolutely luck that I don't have a kid right now. But I don't have a kid right now. And now I'm married. Now I'm building a life. Now I'm getting myself to that point. And once I get to myself to that point, me and my wife will decide if we want to have a kid. Or maybe we'll adopt a kid. But neither one of us wanted kids up until now. Now we're at a place where we can see in the future, that sooner than later we'll be good. And we'll be able to have a kid. And we'll be able to take care of that kid. And one of us will will foot the bill for all the bills. And, go out and work every day. And the other one will take care of the kid up until the point when they go to school. And then we'll get them into a private school because neither one of us want our kid to go to public school. And we'll have to figure out how to support that. And so on. We're making these plans before we go forth. And I think that if even 2 out of every 10 people did that, we would be in a way better spot. Way better spot. Oh, sad. I could go off on a whole nother tangent about these stupid little things. When I was being raised, I was around cigarette smokers a lot, and I kind of idolized smoking cigarettes. And so as soon as I could, I got into them. I had my first cigarette at like 10 years old. And now as a 30-year-old man, I'm only smoking these stupid little things because I need nicotine in my life. I need some amount of nicotine in some way or another. And I used to be a pack and a half a day kind of guy. And then I was a chewer for a long time. I would literally have chew in my mouth from when I wake up until I went to sleep every day. I have fucking gangly, shitty teeth over it. And now I just have these little vape things, which I like, to be honest. I like them, but they're not good for you. And that's the other thing. I never learned anything good for me. I was raised on mac and cheese and Top Ramen and fucking Hamburger Helper. I don't know what good food tastes like. I don't eat berries because I don't like berries. Because when I was a kid, I never ate berries. And I never understood how good berries could be for you. So I don't eat fucking berries. I wish I eat berries. I wish I could just walk around, see all these dumbass blackberry bushes everywhere that I hate. Look at these blackberries and be like, well, at least this piece of shit plant produces such a good berry. I'll just pick that shit off, get the little hairs off it, throw it in my mouth. That sounds delicious. But no, I'm not going to do that because that shit's gross. It's not, but it is. In my brain, it is. Because I didn't eat healthy when I was a kid. It's little shit like that. You know, you should be prepared to make sure that your kid has everything that they need. But the food that they're eating should be good quality food that maybe, if you can, you grow it your fucking self and it's homemade and it's real. And then a kid can understand the complicated relationship between mankind and animals, right? Because you have people out here that don't understand that, like, they see they look over here, they see a pig, there's a pig over here, and then they look over here at the grocery store and they see ground up pork, and they don't make the connection. Like, not really. They know that it's pig, they know that, but they don't know the process. They don't know how it goes from being a pig to being ground up pork. They don't know what that looks like. They don't know what that looks like for the animal. They don't know what it's like to take a life of an animal. They don't know what, and I don't. As a 30-year-old man, I've been eating meat my whole life. I don't know what that looks like. I literally accidentally skinned a rabbit when I was like 14, and it terrified me. That's a story for another time, but I wish I had that. I wish I knew what it was like to go out and get my own meat, get my own animals and use every part of them as much as I can and be appreciative of that animal sacrifice for me, because there is a relationship between humans and animals that, when it's healthy, when it's, a circle of life sort of scenario, it makes sense. But what we do is we just go to the store and we're like, oh, fucking bratwurst and steak, yeah. But we don't give a fuck about cows or about what they have to go through, because factory farming and all that other stuff. And now you could sit back and say, like, oh, look at this liberal pansy talking about farming. No. I'm not against killing animals. I'm against killing them the way that we kill them. We are fucking tremendously horrible. We are horrible to these animals. Cows, pigs, any kind of chickens, any kind of like mainstream protein source. We are fucking horrible. And, it's kind of the way of the world. And that sucks. I wish it was different. But if it was different, then you'd have to actually go out and get your own meat. And it would require effort. And why are you going to do that when you can go to the grocery store and go get a whole bag full of already cut up and processed and, made up chicken, or beef or pork or liver or fucking giblets or whatever it is that you want. Like, any part of the animal you want. It's already clean, prepared, and packaged for you at nice little short prices. $5 a pound, $3 a pound, $6 a pound, whatever. Somebody's already gone through that trouble. So why would you do it? Why would you go out there and kill an animal and take its life and get bloody and carry the carcass back and strip it and cut out all the meat and prepackage it and all the shit that you got to do when you actually kill an animal for yourself? Like, why would you go do that when you could just go to the store? Well, it's because you don't understand that relationship, because you've never gone hunting. You've probably never like I didn't hold a gun until I was old enough to drink. I don't think. Anyway. Yeah. So that's it. This is number one.